You can't be serious, man. You cannot be serious!
Where Greg Evans is, in the house, of course, and Sue Stanley OAM is in the house, and we're about to put in a call to a man called Gary Todd. I had an unusual introduction to Gary. Gary rang me up. I'll mention this when I speak to him. He rang me up and I said, hello. I mightn't mention this to him. I said, hello. And he said, oh, is that your son? And I said, yes.
He's Chinese, is he?
Is that Chinese? He's Scottish. And he said,
Scottish.
Is that your son? And I said, yes. I thought it was a hoax call or a prank.
A scam.
And I said, what do you want? Who are you? He said, I'm Gary Todd. I said, Gary, what do you want, mate? He said, well, you should interview me. Not bad accent, is it?
It's good accent.
He said, you should. I said, who are you, mate? What are you doing? What are you ringing me for? I said, where'd you get my number? He said, it was given to me by someone. And he said, yeah, well, you should. I said, why would I interview you? Who are you? What have you done? He said, I've written books. I'm a best-selling author. I said this way, and I said, mate, please. I said, text me, seeing as you got my number, text me who you are and I'll have a look at what you're on about. Since then, the people who gave him his number, John Locker, and said, oh, you want to speak to Gary? And I said, well, shit, it's a wonder he'll even speak to me. I thought he was a fucking idiot. I said, he's a bloke ringing me up, and this will be interesting how this goes.
Yeah, this could go really well.
That I know,
box you in the ears.
Now that I know who you are, Gary.
Yeah.
So we're going to put it and call to him. Okay. And I know very little about him, as you'll understand by my questions.
Well, you know he's Scottish.
Let's hope. It's a Brit moonlit knit to knit. So here we go.
Where was he born?
I'm going to ask him.
Oh, okay.
Just a minute. Here we go. I hope he takes the call. Or else
no, he might flick you.
Completely redundant. Here we go.
He might say, who is this?
Now we've got a technical...
I can hear something ringing. Is it upstairs?
It might be in your ears.
Yeah.
Hello? Hello?
Hello, Sam.
Gary!
Hiya, Sam. How you doing, mate?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yeah.
It's about as good as the call he made you.
Hang on a minute, just a minute.
Gee.
Can you hear me properly, Gary?
I can hear you great. Yeah.
Good on you. Now, Gary,
Yes.
this is Sam Newman, and I've got Greg Evans with me.
Hello, Gary.
Hello, Greg. How you doing, mate?
And hang on, and Sue Stanley, who is a four-time world aerobics champion, OAM, she's sitting here listening to this. And I've just told everyone, Gary, how I came to speak to you when you rang me up, and I had no idea who you are. And I'm very sorry for that, but I thought you were. I didn't know who you were, and then subsequently, a number of people have said, "Oh, you should speak to Gary. He's a star." So I thought, "Oh shit! I hope he speaks to me," because I said, "Who the fuck are you? What are you ringing me for?" Because I had no idea why he'd rang me. So here we are, Gary, and it's very nice to speak to you. Now I'm not sure if you could speak up. Can you hear Gary?
I can hear him now. Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear him, but can you hear him clearly, loud? All right, Gary. Thank you very much for taking the call. We do on the You Cannot Be Serious. We have a couple of segments, and then we always like to interview people of interest. And I'm told you are a person of great interest. I know nothing about you. I've never met you, but I know you. I know you've written a couple of books about your upbringing in Scotland. I think are you from Dundee?
I'm from Dundee, yeah.
From Dundee. You're from Dundee, and you had a tough upbringing, and then you've, as all eminent and famous people are, you've made good, and you've made the best of your life, and you've known boxing. You're in the boxing world. So from that basis, we'll start that, Gary. You come from Dundee. You now live in Sydney. Are you domiciled in Sydney permanently?
I live here permanently with my wife and kids there.
Yeah, so you permanently live in Sydney?
Yeah.
Yep. And why are we speaking to you? Because I'm told you had a very tough upbringing in Scotland, and you wrote a book called Annie's Boy. I presume Annie was your mother, Gary?
Yes, Annie's Boy was my mum.
Yep.
I wrote the book. I started thinking about writing the book after she died, because obviously it got me thinking. I was getting a bit older, and as you're getting older, you start reminiscing about things that happened in the past. So I started thinking about it, and then one of my mates through the boxing in Los Angeles said that we sat down and had a couple of beers one day, and he said to us, he told him my story, I told him his, and that kind of stuff. He told me his story, I told him mine, and he started crying, and he says, "My God, that's some story, Gary." And I went, "Look, everybody's got their own story. You've got yours, I've got mine." And he says, "Look, what about writing a screenplay?" So I says, "A screenplay?" I says, I've wrote a couple of books, but writing a screenplay, I wouldn't know how to start. So anyway, lo and behold, a year later, I had the screenplay done. And then my wife read it, and she said, "My God, I never knew any of this. You know, the childhood, the issues you went through." And she starts crying. I go, "Geez, this thing's making
Holy
everybody
mackerel.
cry."
Gary,
It's not meant to make you cry, but that's what happened. Then I wrote the book.
what got you so interested in boxing?
The boxing's always been a passion for me since I was a young kid. My old man was a fairly violent fella, and it's in the book and all the rest of it, but he got put away thanks to me. I testified against my dad at 10-year-old in court, and he got put away, and I always thought he'd come back, and I wanted to stand up to him if he ever came back. So I started training. I've done a lot of running, road work, boxing, done a wee bit of judo.
So you started, you learnt boxing to stand up to your dad.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that was one of the reasons. The other reason I wanted to look like Bruce Lee. So.
That sounds a bit like a boy named Sue, Johnny Cash. The bloke called him a boy named Sue because he knew he'd have to get tough or die. So I'm just, if we could, just before we get on to the boxing, Gary, there's a movie in this. I've got a feeling. When people read your story about Annie's mother, what made them cry? About the hardship you went through? What made them bring a tear to? What got them to bring a tear to their eye, Gary? Do you think?
So there's a lot of things in the book. It's an emotional book, but it's also a story about living with a mindset that things are going to get better. And my mum used to pray every night out loud in the bed, and I used to listen to her in the next bedroom next to her. And we were very poor, and nothing was going right. And it's all in the book. But my old man was just one thing that was going on. There was a lot of unrest in the country at the time. Margaret Thatcher was in.
Yep.
She was causing mayhem in her own way. There wasn't any jobs, and all I wanted to do was work, and you couldn't get a job, so it was that frustrating. So I had to do things that were probably a wee bit unorthodox just to get money. We'll say that, we'll probably term it that way. But the emotional side of things, like, he used to torture us. My old man used to torture my mum. And I would be there.
Torture her?
Torture her mentally, physically.
I see. So they didn't get on, obviously?
Nah, it was one of them relationships.
Yep.
Sam, just, you hear about it. I speak to kids and that now up here in Sydney and stuff, and you hear a lot of these stories, but we never had any help. Like my dad used to carry a knife, a big butcher's knife around with him. He'd follow us down the street, and on a few occasions he had the knife to her throat and in public, and she went to the police, and the police never done anything. And at one point they were going to take me and put me in a borstal, which is a boys' home.
Yep.
And if that would have happened, my life would have changed on its head, But me and my mum was together the whole thing, and we stayed strong, and we got through it. And then that's one side of Annie's boy. The next side of Annie's boy is when I started to get into my early teens and the things that I got up to, which is quite funny. Basically I robbed a truck. I was standing there with the engine on, and I couldn't drive. I'd never driven a car in my life, and I decided to steal a truck. Driving down the motorway, and never even knew where the brake was. So that was one of the things.
What was in the truck, Gary?
Well, I was hoping it would be a lot of expensive stuff. But I end up pulling across to the side and just running, tailing it. So, but the other thing as well is we broke into a truck that was we thought it was full of steaks, and it ended up being fish fingers. So we had, and my mate never seen any of the crime shows like the Sweeney or anything like that, because I was expecting him to be bringing around the corner a big van. He came around the corner on a little, well, it was like a mini, but it's called a ladder. And the suitcase, my mum's suitcase was bigger than the boot. So we spent about 10 hours unloading the fish fingers and selling them around the pubs in Dundee.
Fantastic.
Sam, I think we better read Annie's Boy. What do you think?
When
was this? When was the book released, please, Gary?
It came out in October last year.
Right.
Yeah.
So when I spoke,
I'll send you a copy if you want some.
yes, thank you. When I spoke to you prior to getting you to come on here, you said you're a best-selling author. So you've written Annie's book, and you
Annie's Boy,
Annie's book, Annie's Boy, and you also have written a book called, have you not, Roll with the Punches?
No, I never wrote that. No, I wrote.
What's the other book you've written?
I wrote 2 personal bestsellers on boxing. So that's called Workouts from Boxing's Greatest Champs.
Ooh, workouts.
Yeah.
Go on.
No. With workouts, who have you worked out with, Gary?
Well, I've worked it over the years. First of all, I've interviewed Muhammad Ali in his hotel room. I've interviewed Roberta Duran, Sugar Ray Leonard.
How did you get to interview these people, Gary? Do they know of you? It says, I think you've trained and over 100 personalities in the boxing industry.
Yeah.
How did you get to do this?
I just perseverance. I'm quite annoying, sort of persistent sort of fella. So I just travelled and I went to the gyms. Some of the doors opened, some of them slammed in your face, but I just kept trying. And if they opened the door a bit, I'd kick the door in. And there wasn't much stopping us once I get my sort of on a mission. But some of the interesting things about are these fighters.
Yes.
And go to these gyms. It's the stories as well behind it. Like to get my interview with Tommy Hearns. So Thomas the Hitman Hearns, he's one of the greatest welterweights moving up in weight as well. But to get that interview, I actually had to arm wrestle him in Caesar's Palace across the crap table, and he was with his mates, and the whole Caesar's Palace was surrounding it. They were cheering for Tommy Hearns, and I beat him in arm wrestling to get the interview.
And you said that the Hearns, who did he fight that memorable fight?
Marvin Hagler.
What?
Marvin Hagler.
Yes, Marvin Hagler, marvellous Marvin Hagler. You said that was, you thought Hagler won, didn't he?
Hagler won, yeah. Hagler
and you reckoned Hearns, you thought Hearns won, I think.
No, I did. Marvin Hagler's my favourite fighter of all time. I was a big fan.
I see. Yep.
But no, and then there's other stories, like just to get the interviews, but it wasn't easy. I was like a construction worker, so even to get the book published, they said I'd never get it done. And here we are, about 3 international best-selling books sold around the world. But these stories in the gyms, when you're going to these gyms, I went to the roughest, toughest gyms, and in those days they used to have Hispanic gyms, black gyms,
Yes.
or Jewish gyms, and I went to them all just to get the interviews. I didn't care where it was, but there was one particular time I came out the gym in Los Angeles, and I was walking up the road with I had my beanie on. I was covered in sweat.
Is this in a black neighbourhood?
Yeah.
Yep.
And I'm walking up in the no taxis, just me walking up the road, and I says, I could get to the end of the road, and I'll try and flag a taxi. Anyway, next minute, there was about 10 of these guys, I think it was 11 actually, surrounded me in a circle. And one of the guys pulls out the gun and he pressed the gun at the back of my head, and basically said, "Let's kill this motherfucker." This a white guy, you know. And I stayed calm, and honestly, I've no idea how I done it, but I think it was the reason I stayed calm was because of my childhood. You know, the things I'd went through, and it didn't really phase us, to be honest. People talk about pressure. That was pressure, but pressure doesn't really worry me because of my childhood, you know. So that's what happened with that. But I eventually talked my way out. I asked him, I said, "Look, I'm not selling drugs." They thought I was a drug dealer or something.
Oh,
and I said,
see.
Check my bag. It's got a pair of gloves, hand wraps, and a skipping rope and an empty drink bottle. I said, "I'm not here selling drugs. I just want to get the fuck out of here." And and they let us go. But this guy was very enthusiastic, wanting to kill us and blow my head off. So I was very lucky I escaped that. But that's just one of the stories, just to try and get the interviews for the boxers. But but it's been a blast. It's been great, and I'm actually working on my third workouts from Boxing's Greatest Champs as we speak.
So just seeing as I'm not accurate, could we? You've written a book called Annie's Boy, and what's the other title of the other book?
The other book's called Workouts from Boxing's Greatest Champs.
Right, and you're about
Volume 1, Volume 2.
So it said here, and I read a little about you. It said that it's about fear, struggle, and violence. Sounds like drugs and rock and roll, but it said fear, struggle, and violence, and it said roll with the punches. Is that encapsulates?
Cool.
Just what's that?
I think that's maybe you can describe me as just roll with the punches all the time, but it's not me. That wasn't me. But Annie's Boy's a story of struggle. It's violent. It's living with the mindset that things get better. And there's a few funny stories in there, but it's emotional. And it's, to be honest with you, Sam, it's actually a love story. And a guy like me, I never thought I could ever write a love story, but it's a love story between a wee boy and his mum.
Gary, you sound like a gentle giant. I've seen a picture, and you've got lots and lots of tattoos. Do you have a tattoo of any boxer on your body?
No, I don't. No.
No. If you did have a tattoo of a boxer,
Hang on.
well, who would you have and where would you stick it?
If I had a tattoo, it'd probably be
Marvin.
Sugar Ray Robinson or Marvin Hagler. Sugar Ray Robinson or Marvin Hagler.
Very
And
nice.
I'm not sure what I'd put. The wife would absolutely kill us anyway, so I'm probably too scared of her.
Gary, you could ask Sam about Muhammad Ali, because as I sit here in the studio, I'm looking at a picture of him and the great man together.
Yes.
What a man. What a man.
Yeah.
Well, hang on. Where did you meet Muhammad Ali, Sam?
Oh, when he was out here, he came out for some reason. I met him when I was with the channel I worked for. So the current, I don't think he's not sure if he's the current heavyweight champion, Tyson Fury.
Yeah.
Do you have a regard for him, or I think you thought he was a bit of huff and puff, although he was a very tough man, but probably would you have liked, how would he have gone against Muhammad Ali? I know it's a hypothetical question, but what do you think of Tyson Fury?
Well, Tyson Fury is very tough. He can take a punch, but I've always never rated him as highly as what he rates himself, and some of the media rate him as well. Muhammad Ali would have. He's not as big as him. You've met Muhammad Ali, but
Yep.
he's still a big guy. But the difference between Muhammad Ali is he's very, very smart, very good on his feet, and fast. And he would have outboxed Tyson Fury. I wouldn't even mention him really in the same sense. That's the way I feel about Tyson Fury. I've met Tyson Fury on a few occasions, and he's a big lump of a guy, but once his legs start to go, which every boxer, every sportsman, the legs start to go first. Once his legs start to go, and I think his legs are going now, than they have been for the last couple of fights, he's not going to be near as handy. He's a bully, and he just throws his weight on you, sticks a few elbows in. He's not as polished as Muhammad Ali, and Muhammad Ali would just absolutely box him. and
Of all-
probably stopped, probably knocked down a few times as well.
Of all the great fighters, the household names that you've met, who do you regard as Roy Jones? Was he the man that used to wear a top hat and tails, or I've got him mixed up with someone?
Well, I think he did actually. I think he did with the.
He was an educated, articulate man that defied the odds of when he got into the ring.
He was one of the greatest fighters. But for me, it's very hard when you spend half an hour in a hotel room with Muhammad Ali. The guy just oozes. He's got this aura around him, and
charisma.
Charisma, but he had this sort of glow around him. He was so. You left feeling great, like just that. Oh, geez, what a man! But he's not just a brilliant boxer. He was a great person as well, and that shines through when you talk to him. But that was a real highlight for me. But there's been too many, there's. And other memories that go with it. It's just, I've just been dead.
Ali was pretty savage on Joe Frazier in the day. Probably wouldn't have got away with things he said about him in today's climate. Did you ever speak to him about it? Why he was so personally savage on Joe? I know gamesmanship is a big thing, but he called him a monkey and an Uncle Tom, and he was very, very savage on him.
When I spoke to Muhammad Ali, he was very apologetic. He says, "Look, all we wanted to do," he says, "is sell a fight." He says, in the end up, he says he was a good man. He tried his best for his family, but the other thing as well, I met Joe Frazier on 3 occasions, and I asked him the same question, and I got a totally different answer. I'll not say what he said, but it was a totally different answer.
Gary, you've been very blessed with your passion with boxing to be able to meet these great stars and spend time with them. What a terrific buzz for you to be able to sit down in a hotel room with Muhammad Ali.
I was very lucky, but it took me 3 days to get that interview. I stood at the bottom of a lift. He had a private lift in the Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas, and I stood for 3 days. And all I'd done was go and get a bottle of water, and I had to get past. I had to get in the good books with the bodyguard that stand at the bottom of the lift, and I eventually got it. So
did you hear that, Sam? Rather than go through all the official channels, Gary stayed at the hotel and stayed there in the lift and waited for someone to come down that he could get in to see Muhammad Ali.
Fantastic, mate.
Dedication.
The greatest asset you can have in life is persistence, mate.
Yes.
Yeah. I've got another picture of me here and Joe Frazier. I was in his corner when he came out here and fought in Melbourne in 20 odd years ago. I can't remember who he fought. He fought Muhammad Ali's training partner. I've got a look at this. I know you can't see this.
You're not shaking his hand. You're holding his hand.
Yes, I'm holding his hand in awe.
Wasn't he a great man as well? Like, I could not believe how small he was.
Yep.
As a heavyweight, I couldn't believe how small he was, and other than that, how big the guys he fought. He was a small heavyweight, wasn't he?
And Mike Tyson, he wasn't very big either.
I trained with Mike Tyson on half a dozen occasions over the years, and I had some pretty funny stories with Mike Tyson as well. Some of them probably couldn't go to air, but all I can say, everything you read about Mike Tyson's true. Now,
Gary, why have you settled in Australia? What did you do? So why did you decide to emigrate here?
I emigrated here. It's obviously an Annie's Boy, the book, but I emigrated here because there wasn't much. I couldn't get a job. I was working in the abattoirs, and that was a good job. That was my best job I've had in my life, believe it or not.
In Dundee.
In Dundee, yeah.
Yep.
And I loved the Rocky story. So
yep.
I was living a Rocky story in Dundee. But I was going to get in too much trouble. I was going to get in too much trouble, and there was always loads of fighting and people getting glasses in the face and stabbed. And I thought I could do better than that, you know. So there was a difficult situation I was in leaving my mum. It was broke my heart, and I couldn't settle in Australia for the first 5 years. And I eventually got on the oil rigs. I went and worked on the oil rigs for another 5 years, and that sorted us out. And then I met my wife, and then she's sort of the reason that
Where's she from?
She's from Dundee as well.
Oh, yep. And you brought her out here to Oz.
I couldn't get any Aussie girls to understand it.
I know what they mean. And you bought. We've got an interpreter here, Gary. We're going beautifully. You probably don't understand me as well, or Greg would. Greg's very articulate, but I'm.
No, I understand every word. There.
And so, what do you do when you came? Do you currently do anything out here, or have you retired?
No, I'm a construction manager.
Oh,
so
wow!
I look after like $3, $4, $5 billion projects. So I've worked on a fair few tunnels. I worked underground on a lot of occasions, and then I just recently done, well, not recently, but I done the Sydney Light Rail, which is a rail system going through Sydney. So. And
any trouble? I bet you don't have too much trouble if they come up to the office. You say, boys, I'd step back out onto the job, or rat-a-tat-tat.
They do what they're told.
Now, you're
I don't get that. We don't get too much trouble like with the unions and stuff like that, you know. But there's always. I mean, it's a strange industry to work in. Put it that way.
Well, it's a strange industry Sam works in as well, because one day his phone rings and it's an interesting fella like you, Gary Todd. I mean, how lucky were you, Sam, to get a phone call from Gary? What a fascinating man.
So you're about as... I'm not sure who's been more famous coming out of Scotland, the Bay City Rollers, you were up and about at about the same time they were, Gary, although poles apart from what I understand about how the Bay City Rollers were travelling.
Well, the other thing that I should mention, I suppose, I don't know, I always struggle with these kind of interviews, but my wife says, just got to go on and sell yourself and just be yourself, and I goes, okay, but I should mention that I've also been nominated this year for the Boxing Hall of Fame in America.
Wow.
Have you?
So I've been nominated for induction. So as soon as I heard, I went out and bought the air flights, and I booked the hotels, and my wife says, "You've not even been given the nod yet," and I goes, "I don't care, we're going anyway." So that's in me and the wife's going. So if nothing else, we've been nominated, and if I do get it, I'll be the second person in Scotland to be nominated in the Boxing Hall of Fame in America. So,
and who's the first?
Ken Buchanan.
Oh yes,
Ken Buchanan, Scottish lightweight. So he fought Roberto Duran. So he deserves to be in the Boxing Hall of Fame. Me, as far as I'm concerned, I've just been dead lucky. So I'm going to take it, but No, Gary,
you can't sell yourself, mate. You wouldn't be nominated to be inducted in the Boxing Hall of Fame in America if you hadn't. There must be some other thing you're not telling us, because if you're not a boxer and you haven't fought over there must be something else going on.
No, I was a boxer. I've been a boxer. I've been in boxing all my life, and I helped train Mundine, Anthony Mundine.
Yep.
I was in Kosciuszko's camp for some time, for many years.
Yep.
And I've been writing. I've been a boxing writer.
Mate, he's a boxer, he's a trainer, he's an author, he's all of that. That's why he's going to go into the Hall of Fame.
And on the seventh day, he rested.
Well, Gary, congratulations. What a fabulous career you've had and are having. And what great stories you've got to tell. Imagine having dinner with Gary. You just talk all night about these great stories. But they're all in the books, aren't they? We can get the workout book, and we can get Annie's Boy, and we can read about all these great stories.
I'd love to meet you, actually, and buy you a cup of tea.
Yep, we'd like that.
A cup of tea, yeah, and we could probably understand half of what you say, and you'd understand half of what we say. But the tea would bring us back to an even playing ground.
I would. Got
Gary-
my chocolate biscuits for you.
Now, Gary Todd, thank you so much, and give our regards to your wife and your kids and anyone else that follows your life. And what a great success story you've been. And thanks very much for joining us on You Cannot Be Serious, Gary Todd.
It's been absolutely fantastic. It's a real pleasure.
Good on you, mate. All the best.
See you, Gary.
Cheerio. All the best. Cheerio.
Bye-bye.